So welcome to this very unique edition of the Lazy Wealth Creation podcast. Today, I'm going to be talking about some of the things in the background on this banner right here, because people do ask me, Carl, I know that you say that you've done all of these things, but can you explain how this all happened? Because it all seems so disjointed and so mismatched. And I'm like, yeah, okay, of course. And it usually takes me about 20 minutes to tell people a relevant sort of life story. So I'm going to try and condense this for you as best as possible. Today, you know me as investor, entrepreneur, and trainer, but that is fast forwarding through to the first 43 years of my life. But what actually was it? Because it wasn't always so. I started out in a council estate, single parent family. Most people already know that story. I eventually moved out at 16 and didn't have a clue what I wanted to do, because I actually applied to join the British Army and they said no. They rejected me. Why? Because I had asthma, or so I was told by the doctor. Turns out when I moved out, I coughed my lungs up for about 4 weeks, and then I was completely free and clear of asthma, because the asthma turned out to be passive smoking for 16 years, 40 fags a day, no matter where I went. So that's another story for another day. But at age 16, I still didn't really know what I was going to do. So I went and did what we now used to call a YTS, a youth training scheme, working in a solicitor's office. Oh my goodness me. The first time I did this, I remember going distinctly into the kitchen. It was my first week. I got a cup from the kitchen cupboard. I filled it with some tap water and I was drinking it on my break. Some lady came in who worked there and she went, "That's my cup." I was like, okay. I was only 16. I didn't know what the hell was going on. And she stormed out and I thought, I don't know what's going on. Nobody's explained anything to me. So I finished my drink, I washed the cup, I put it back, I walked out, and the entire office was glaring at me like I'd committed the most heinous crime you can imagine, which was obviously sipping out of somebody else's cup and then subsequently washing it and putting it back. Needless to say, I lasted all of 3 weeks in that job till I got a job with a building society, a very well-known building society, and again lasted about 7 months there. It was an absolutely awful, awful job. I hated every minute of it. The staff there were not particularly nice and didn't want a 16-year-old spotty-faced kid working with them. I could tell that from a mile away. Didn't really know what to do after that. Ended up homeless because I didn't know anything about benefits. I didn't know how to claim any income support or anything like that because no one had ever shown me. So I ended up with nowhere to live, and that was quite an upsetting time. I was very lucky. I had some friends that I made in high school whose parents and I really got on well, so they took me in and eventually started working in pubs for some friends of mine. Got myself sorted and eventually got enough money to get my very first pub back in, I want to say 1999, late 2000, early 2000, which of course that was my very first business. I was only aged 18 years of age, didn't know what the hell I was doing. Thought I knew it all, of course, because I worked behind a pub bar for a few years. Didn't really know what I was doing at all, to be totally honest with you, but it was my first exposure to business and understanding about VAT. Didn't have any knowledge what that was. I didn't even know that you had to pay for people to come and collect your bins for you, because nobody tells you that. You're just sort of expected to know. And that, of course, went exactly as you would expect it to go, downhill quickly. I ended up with a daughter in 2001, my oldest. From there, I was going to go to university and study psychology, was on track to do that. And what happened then? Oh yes, I remember what happened then. I started a small martial arts school in Wirral, and I was teaching jiu-jitsu and karate to various people in the area, some children, some adults. Ended up meeting, falling in love with, and later having a child with one of the ladies who came to the training session. So we were together for a long time. We got a son out of that deal, but we ended up getting divorced a few years ago. In between then, had loads of things going on, but went to work for some really big corporate roles in places called like Babcock, like Mace, Bureau Veritas. So I got to work with some really, really large companies who taught me actually they're not all they're cracked up to be. Why do I say that? Because people go with these big companies because they trust them. They trust the brand like too big to fail. But actually, when you've been in those brands and you see that everybody is running around like headless chickens, nobody actually knows what's going on, and over 99% of the time, they're winging it. They don't tell you that, of course, and everything looks lovely and smooth on the surface, but actually, they're winging it over 99% of the time. I have to say, the amount of last-minute proposals I was given to look over and present the next day, having never seen them before, or the amount of proposals I was asked to draft with less than 10 hours notice. How long have you had it for? 3 months. Oh, right, okay, cool. So that used to happen to me regularly. So fast forwarding now to 2017, that's when this happened. I set up a company called Better Safety. It does what it says on the tin. We provide health and safety consultancy services to the business environment in England and Wales. And what happened actually when I first set this up, I had this great idea, or I thought it was a great idea. So right, small businesses, micro businesses, 10 or less employees, they can't access good quality health and safety advice or support. So what I'm going to do for 50 quid a month, I'll be their health and safety advisor, which is £12.50 a week, you might say. And I phoned up the bank, I'd left my job, I said, look, can I get some money because I want to buy a car? And he was like, yeah. You can have up to, I think it was £50,000 they were willing to lend me at the time, but I didn't want to be too showy. So what I did is I ended up saying, look, I'm targeting small businesses here. So I ended up getting a Vauxhall Insignia that was 18 months old, a 66 plate. It was a great car. I've actually still got it. To this day, I've still got that car. And I went around all of these small businesses and I was selling my £50 a month health and safety training and health and safety consultancy services, and not one person took advantage of it. Not one person, okay? So then I started going on the OHSCR's website, which is a boring thing for you to do unless you're a health and safety consultant like me. And it's basically where there's some bigger work in from bigger companies. And I landed a job with a very big retailer who specializes in jewelry and pawnbroking. And they ended up paying me a ridiculous amount of money every single month to look after their health and safety for the next 6 months. Why was that so important to me? Well, because what it did for me is I was like, I now know my worth. People weren't willing to spend £50 a month on my advice, guidance and support, but these guys are spending £7,000, £8,000, £9,000 a month on my advice, guidance and support. So there's a huge difference there. And I started to learn the value of what I was actually offering, that people were willing to pay for it. So this company, Better Safety, was actually one of the best decisions that I actually made moving forward. Stop! Before you go any further, if you're enjoying this content, remember to give us a subscribe, a like, a follow or a share. Every single person that clicks on those buttons, it means the world to us because it helps us reach more people and get people educated in how to get wealth the lazy way. And then of course, COVID happened in 2019, which many of you will remember. And my partner was working as a carer in Wales, and I was working in health and safety. So I was doing loads of work at the time. I was helping people set up COVID centres across private businesses all over the UK and Europe, which was a great environment for me to work in. And my partner was working in care. And what I noticed was she was doing all these hours, like 60 hours a week, 70 hours a week, but she was coming home with £1,400 a month, £1,200 a month. So the numbers, they didn't add up. And when I was looking at her pay, we looked through her pay slip and it was like, you're not getting paid for travel. You're not getting paid for your time between calls. You're only getting paid for the actual calls that you do. So we had a little think about this, and I was thinking back on the time when I was seeing my nan was getting some care, and they weren't particularly good carers. They were just sort of coming in, making her a sandwich very badly, ripping the bread to pieces with hard butter, for example, and then they were leaving. And oh, it's okay, you can do the medication yourself, Eve, and they left. And that was care, and I thought, God, that's not a very good example of care. So I said to my partner, I got this great idea. Why don't we set up a care company? And my missus said, absolutely not. We're not doing that. Absolutely no way. So she went off to bed and I stayed up and started researching what does home care actually look like, how are you going to get it registered, how does it work, and so on and so on. So I actually put an application in on behalf of my partner in 2020, and it took almost a year to get what we call a CQC, Care Quality Commission interview for registration, of which I had to be the registered manager, and my partner, who's the owner of the business, the sole director and sole shareholder, she had to basically provide the care, right? Because I didn't know anything about care. And I don't like seeing naked old people, being honest. So we actually set this company up in March 2020, or May 2020, and we got registered in March 2021. And it took us 8 weeks to actually get our very first private clients at Beloved Home Care. And the rest, as they say, is history. We've sort of snowballed from there. And now, in just that business alone, we turn over between 1.3 and 1.6 million pounds per year, depending on the year that you'll be watching this evergreen content, I'm assuming. So in the 2024-5, we actually hit our million mark. We've absolutely well blown past that 24-25. So, you know, that's why I say 1.2, 1.6 million. It's going to be probably more than that, depending on when you watch this. So we absolutely blasted this. And how do we do it? What we found was people who are carers from the UK, typically the people that we've experienced, the vast majority of them were incredibly unreliable. There was lots of reasons why they couldn't do things, and you couldn't really rely on them to do some of the most basic tasks. And they like to complain a lot as well, I found. So we ended up looking at hiring people from overseas. Now, that has been an absolute savior for our business, because we've now got a small army of highly trained, highly effective, highly capable overseas workers who are phenomenal care workers. How do we know this? Because the feedback that we get tells us this. We've got over 100 clients at the time of recording this video, and all of our clients are absolutely over the moon with how our carers treat them. So this is absolutely wonderful news, and we deliver around about 2,000 hours of care per week as of the time of this recording. So something is going right, and this business was absolutely fantastic for us. But in 2022, at the end of that year, I was talking to a lady who was a manager of another care business, and she was just having a conversation with me, and she said, you know, the guy who owns our care business at the moment, I think he's looking to retire. He would probably look to, you know, give it away either very cheap or maybe even for free. I said, oh, why don't we have a conversation? Which is exactly what we did. So I met him the very next day. He was the director and the owner of Wepra Villa Home Care. And I went and had a lovely chat with him. What an absolutely genuine man, highly likable, a really nice guy, and I'm very, very privileged and honoured to say he's now a very good friend of mine. So shout out to Raj there. And I had a chat with him and I said, look, you know, what is it you want to do? And he told me his circumstances, which I'm not going to go into here because it's a little bit too sensitive and it's not fair on him. But I said, look, you know, I'll put an offer together for you. And he said, you know, just put any offer, don't be embarrassed, you know, just tell me what you're thinking. And I did. I put an offer to him that night, and by 7 o'clock in the morning the next day, he agreed and he accepted my no money down offer, which is absolutely, I was so excited because we were traveling somewhere. I can't remember where. I think we were going to Malta. And he accepted the offer anyway. And I said to my missus, I said, look, you know, I've met this guy, he's a lovely guy, but you know, this is what we want to do. And it took about 2.5 to 3 months for the solicitors from my side and his side to do what solicitors do, which is make everything complicated. We'd already agreed everything, the solicitors just need to put it in writing, you know. And we took over the business legally and officially in January 2023. And we've managed to just over double the turnover of that business since that time. So it was on sort of like £400,000, I think it was, per year, or £250,000 per year. It's now to £600,000 a year. So we've sort of over doubled that. It's 200% increase in turnover. We've got fantastic staff. And again, these are the businesses, these are our foundation, our core businesses that actually allow us to go and do other things and build our assets and build our wealth in other ways. But these three businesses are what I call the money factories. What do I mean by that? When you are trying to build wealth, you need to have something that builds what I call a money factory. So something that stuff goes in and a bag of money comes out. And that bag of money is what you then take and you invest it in assets that are going to increase your wealth. So just having money in a bag is not going to help you at all. You need to do something with it that's going to turn that one bag into 2 bags or 3 bags or 4 bags and so on. So we take that bag of money and we start investing it in other projects. Those other projects include property, art, jewelry. They involve other businesses that we've bought and sold as well, and other items of asset building, watches I think as well as another one, and so on and so forth. So what then happens is we decided a little while ago, my wife and I, we decided we were going to set up our holding company abroad, which we have now done, which is our Zest company. And we now invest from overseas where it's a little bit more favourable in terms of taxation. But we also have our projects, and I have Lazy Wealth Creation podcast. What's that designed to do? This is my give back to the community. It's my way of helping people who are in circumstances not too dissimilar from mine, who don't have that much money to start with, who don't know what to do. And I didn't have a clue at all. It took me years and years and years to figure this out. My job now is to say, well, look, these are different ways that you can earn money very quickly. Might not be millions of pounds, but it will be hundreds or thousands of pounds every month that you can earn yourself off the sweat of your own work and own labour. I'll show you how to do it and then go away and do it. There's no catch, there's no cost, just go and do it. And then the idea is, once you've tried a few of these ideas, come speak to me and then we'll get you on a proper training program where we're going to help skyrocket that wealth and skyrocket your asset building to make you independently wealthy so you don't need to rely on the government or family ever again. So that is a whistle-stop tour of these brands. However, you might have noticed, yes, there's a lovely QR code there, and if you've got a QR code reader on your phone, you're absolutely free to join on my Linktree and look at any of the businesses that we have there and also connect with me. That's no problem at all. But what do these things at the bottom mean? NRLA, CIOB, City and Guilds, and CQC Good. So what I'm going to do now is just explain a little bit about what these different things are. So the first one on the bottom left, the NRLA landlord member, is the National Residential Landlords Association. Now, if you want to be a property landlord and you want to do it right, i.e. you want to understand what the rules are, what the responsibilities you have as a landlord are, and you want to learn how to maintain and look after property and tenants alike, I recommend you join the NRLA. First of all, if you do that and you follow my link, which is below, nrla.org.uk/join, it asks you for a code. If you type in CND, that's Charlie November Delta, dash, or the takeaway symbol, 094, that will give you £15 off membership. It's currently £125, so that'll take it down to 110. Plus, if you do it there and then, you get 50% off the Landlord's Fundamentals training, which is going to be about £60. It is worth its weight in gold. Why? Because if you are a landlord and you apply for a license, whether that's an HMO license or if you're in a selective licensing area for properties, don't worry if you don't know what that is, it's on the training. The local authorities will give you between £100 and £200 off your license application fee. So you're going to get all your money back from joining the NRLA in one property deal. That's not bad. That's NRLA. The second one, I am a CIOB. My missus would probably jumble those letters around and make some other letters there to say exactly what I am. But I am a chartered member of the Institute of Builders. I'm MCIOB, member of the Chartered Institute of Builders. What does that mean? It means that I am recognised by my peers in the construction industry as a professional builder with several years of experience dating back from 2013 onwards. I'm a design risk management specialist in CDM, Construction Design Management Regulations. I help builders to comply with the rules of health and safety within the UK market. Next one, City and Guilds. What did it say there? diploma in leadership and management for adult care. One of the worst experiences of my life is having to work in the care sector because it's so backwards. The regulator doesn't know what it's doing. The law doesn't make sense in a lot of spaces. The people who work in local authorities, commissioning, are just shockingly bad because they don't understand the true quality and cost of care. But you do have to have a piece of paper which says that you understand all of this, and you have to nod and pretend that everybody knows what they're doing and smile and pretend to be fake and nice, which unfortunately I don't do, which does get us in a lot of trouble sometimes. But my job is to say, look, you're doing this wrong. You're hurting people through lack of funding. You're hurting people through not understanding the dangers that you are presenting to them. And sometimes, we have to stamp our feet a tiny bit to get things done, which we don't like doing. But that qualification, I got several leadership and management pieces of paper, but I had to get the special one in care. Otherwise, they wouldn't let me be a care manager, even though I had a level 7 in leadership and management and a level 5 diploma in leadership and management already. I had to have the special one for care. And then the last one, the bottom right, that is not necessarily for me personally. That is our organisation, Beloved Home Care. We actually got a good rating from the Care Quality Commission. Now, like Ofqual for schools, CQC do the same for care. Does it mean what you think it means? Highly likely. No, it doesn't. Most of the way that the CQC interpret the regulations is paper-based. So they look at paper evidence and governance rather than good quality care. However, we did achieve a good in it. There is another one above that, outstanding, which we didn't achieve. But for somebody who's never worked in care before, that's not a bad achievement. So we achieved it twice, once in 2022 and once again in 2025. So we're actually on the right path here. We're doing things right. So that's a little bit of a whistle-stop tour about what all of these things are. What about this stuff now? So as an investor, what do I mean? I invest in property. That's absolutely right. I do invest in quite a lot of property. But I also invest in people. What do I mean by that? So I have peers and colleagues in my property network who will come to me with potential deals, property deals, and they will need something like funding, or they might need some guidance. And they will come to me and say, Carl, look, I need this to make the deal work. Can we work together? And obviously I'll run that through a risk management plan that I've created and say, yes, actually, I'm happy to do that. And I have worked through some deals, and I have given people a loan of a fixed amount with an understanding of what they're going to pay back and how they're going to do that. So that's worked really, really well. Entrepreneur, well, what's an entrepreneur? Somebody who doesn't like sleep would be my definition of an entrepreneur. We create things from nothing. We create magic from dust, from thin air. We create businesses, we create livelihoods, we create prosperity for other people, and we do all the work in the background and usually get paid last. That's pretty much what an entrepreneur does. We are willing to sacrifice the instant gratification for delayed gratification. So we have in our employ at the moment about 105 people, 106 people. They all get paid, and whatever's left at the end of the month, that's our money. So after the tax man's taken their piece and everybody else, So as an entrepreneur, my job is to find creative ways to generate assets and generate wealth from our money factories and create bigger money factories, better money factories. And that's my job. So as an entrepreneur, it's to manage and monitor the money factory, to create more money factories, and then do something sensible with those assets that's going to protect us from people taking it from us, like the government, for example. So understanding about wills, understanding about trusts, living trusts, and understanding about how to leave your companies in the hands of your children rather than willing them money, because when you will them money, they have to pay taxes on that. So I do a lot of work with that. And then finally, as a trainer, I do so much in the world of training. It is unbelievable what I do. I teach people how to make money out of health and safety, which I managed to do already. That includes landlords, by the way. Make money from care, of course, as well as another care service. This is our holding company, where what I do with that is I use that to spread our money-making factory seeds to bring more assets back into the fold. With the Lazy Wealth Creation podcast, my hope is that it gives back to the community. That's our social value, our social good. And then, of course, NRLA accreditation allows me to be a landlord who takes my responsibilities very seriously. I want to make sure that people who rent properties from me are in a safe environment, in a healthy environment, and are looked after. So if they have a leaky tap, they don't wait 6 months. If they tell me there's something wrong, we act on it immediately. Why? Number one, it's great for the tenants because they see that we actually care about them. That's important because they often tend to pay their rent on time if you show that you care about them. Number two, if you allow a leaky tap to keep on leaking, eventually it's going to erode the pipes. That means there's going to be bigger costs. The tap itself is going to break because they're going to get fed up. So that's going to lead to more expensive repairs in the later future. We had one lady who said the shower was leaking downstairs. I said, how long has that been going on for? She said, 2 weeks. I was like, oh my God. All it required was to put a new shower, what's it called, a shower glass pane up on the bath, and it stopped the leak completely. But in the interim, the damage had already been done, and the ceiling downstairs had already started to show signs of it absorbing the water from the last 2 weeks. So we had to start again with that ceiling, rip it down, redo it, plaster it, paint it all again. That could have been avoided, but unfortunately the tenant didn't think to tell us on time. But again, this is what being a responsible landlord is all about. It's about taking care of your tenants, taking care of your property, and making sure that you have a solid reputation in the area for doing the right thing. Because when you come to get more properties in the area, the council, particularly if it's in a selective licensing area, more on that in a webinar I'm going to tell you about shortly. If you are in a selective licensing area, then that means you have to apply to the council first before they will let you rent out the property. Usually that's because people have been bad landlords in the past and they've let things run to ruin. So by doing this, by becoming known with the local authority as a positive landlord, a force for good you might say, then they're more happy to quickly expedite your application and get your property rented out, all very quickly and more cost effective than being a silly landlord who's going to cost yourself hundreds of thousands of pounds by letting your property run into disrepair. So I hope that's been a useful whistle-stop tour for you. Now, one thing I do want to tell you, if you are inclined to come and learn more about how to grow your businesses, whether that's in property, whether that's business in general, or whether even it's a care business, even if it's that, or even health and safety, it does not matter which one is of more interest to you. We actually have a membership that you can join. If you click the link below, there is a link to our Patreon page. You can select whichever membership you want. There's 2 different categories, or 3 different categories. You pick the one that's most suitable for you. Sign up, you get instant access, you get all of the training resources, you get all the webinars, you get all of the stuff that most people don't want you to know, all the embarrassing outtakes and show reels and all the rest of it. So you get all of this access for just a set monthly fee. And more importantly than all of that, you get access to private groups where you can talk to me directly. Not a bot, not a VA, not my personal assistant, me directly. My WhatsApp, my group chats, you get to have conversations with me, ask me for advice, ask me for any help, and I'm there to support you. Of course, if you want to do that more in person, we have other programs available, but right now, start on the membership. It starts from just £5 a week, it's 20 quid a month. Take your pick which one's most suitable for you, and I look forward to seeing you behind the door.